So hi, everyone, to our rough so class. We're going to begin, as usual, with a few prayers. Mary Ellen, if you have them up, put them up easily. I think you know them by now, but anyway. Sangye Chorang Soki Chognam La Changchu Baru Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Chunyen Gi Pe Sognam Ki Rola Penchir Sangye Drupasho. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create, through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all migrators. Sangye Chodang Soki Chognam La Jangchu Baru Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Chunin Gipe Sognam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Drupasho. And then the short mandala. By offering this ground anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon, and other things, visualized as a Buddha realm, may all migrators enjoy a pure realm as a result of this offering. O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of meditation as usual. So set yourself, your spine straight. If you have a chance to cross your legs, that's good. Recognize your breathing, your respiration. When it's recognized, hold it in with a mental factor, mindfulness, to the exclusion of all other thoughts that you may have been entertaining without multitasking, thinking about other things, just recognizing whether the breath is coming in or being breathed out, whether it's long or short. although there are many techniques in watching the breathing. Maybe watching the point right below the nostrils on your upper lip, watching your belly, just imagining the air filling your body, and so forth. In the end, what you're trying to develop is a mental image of the air element, the wind element, that which is light and moving. Light, not meaning like light from a candle or sun or something, but light as opposed to heavy. Then when you have some stability in having quieted the mind, turn your attention to the mental consciousness and its contents. Letting go of the mind, following individual contents of mind, memories, plans, observations, daydreams, thoughts about the past, the present, or future. Let go of dwelling in any afflictive minds or even any positive states of mind. In that quiet, non-conceptual state, try to recognize the conventional clear light nature of the mind, the fact that it is empty of or lacking any obstruction to the arisal of mental objects. It offers no resistance to their reabsorbing into the mental consciousness. They don't just sort of go somewhere else. As opposed to just the luminosity or clarity in that sense of the mind. This non-obstructing nature and is a non-affirming negation, something more abstract. It's only perceived by the eyes of wisdom and gnosis, say prajna and jnana. This is our developmental Buddha nature. Dwell a little time on that, dwell for a while on that fact. We can completely change our mind. When people meet us and say, oh, you're just still the same old George, or still the same old person, we can definitely change by, in a sense, as Robert Thurman liked to say, reformatting the hard drive, or now we would say reformatting the solid state drive of our mind, getting rid of all of the faults because they can be removed. They're not the nature of our mind. We can overcome our compulsions, our attachment, our addictions, our hatreds, our confusion. We can develop all the positive qualities that we now lack. The fact that we can realize this right now and rejoice in it is due to this auspicious moment we have with a life of leisure and endowment that the Buddha mentioned again and again and again in so many sutras. That can be put to use. This life of leisure and endowment can be put to use for ordinary worldly reasons, or worldly goals, or higher goals, such as liberation. But the highest goal, we can use this life to even in this very life, short life of degenerate age, we could even achieve enlightenment through the practice of highest yoga tantra, or leave imprints in our mind by purifying negativities, accumulating the collections of merit and wisdom. We could create the causes to become an omniscient being. Having recognized that it would be, although it would be very satisfying to achieve nirvana for ourselves, we would be, in a sense, as the Buddha said, it would be very selfish for us to ignore all other sentient beings who are enmeshed in cyclic existence without a refuge protector, without example of how to practice the stages of the path. Out of empathy and compassion for sentient beings who have been depthlessly kind over numberless lifetimes, who will be kind to us and important to us in the future, even our enemies, for their sake, to aim to achieve enlightenment for their sake. To do so, we need to accumulate the collections of merit and wisdom. But to do that, we need to know how. How does one accumulate merit? How does one accumulate the collection of merit? How does one accumulate the collection of wisdom? It was explained in Chandrakirti's Madhyamakavatara, which is commentary to Nagarjuna's fundamental wisdom, expounded on by Lama Tsongkhapa's illumination of the intention, Barapsa, which we are studying. So think, this is a perfect opportunity. I could use this session to accumulate merit and wisdom and learn more how to refine that accumulation by listening to the discourse in order to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. I'm going to participate, listening, contemplating, and meditating, trying to develop the three wisdoms of hearing, contemplation, and wisdom. For the sake of all sentient beings. Okay, thank you. Hope you're all okay. So, how are we doing? Any comments or observation about the meditation that we've been doing for, I think Doris mentioned we've had something in excess of 60 classes, or maybe exactly 60 classes, believe it or not. not counting the discussion groups or other things. Anyone have any comments about the meditation? Anna, how is your meditation going?
Venerable, I really appreciate just all of the details, because even to hear about why we meditate on the breath is the wind energy and what you meant by light, just all of those details. It's just refining, my meditation. I'm very grateful.
Excellent. Okay, good. Nadine, you have an observation?
Yes, thank you very much, George. I find the meditation extremely helpful because it helps to pacify distorted mental wanderings.
Yeah, me too. I have a lot of mental wandering, and even in the midst of holding it on for a couple of breaths, I notice I'm thinking about something else, what I'm going to say later, or thinking about something else. I have to, you have to pull yourself back from engaging in those thoughts. And in so doing, they begin to subside because you're not giving them mental energy. And even if they do come back later, they don't come back as strongly as you started to avoid them. So that's a very good, experience, observational experience for us in everyday life. If we don't practice anger, if we get out of the habit of practicing attachment and compulsion and addiction and so forth, addictive behavior, they will naturally begin to subside. That doesn't eliminate them from the root, but with that quiet period, then that's when you have to, with that quiet mind, that's when you have to apply the antidotes. Just letting the mind subside, abide quietly without a lot of distracting thoughts is very good, but that's just the prelude. That's kind of like clearing the tabletop of your laboratory of all extraneous junk, like my desk, and then on that clear tabletop in the laboratory of your mind, you can then engage in the great experiments of the great beings of the past, the Buddha and all his disciples, developing renunciation, compassion, bodhicitta, wisdom, and so forth. Okay. Anyone else have a thought? Okay. Hi, Jennifer. So you just came in. Minto, are you in Vietnam or are you back in San Diego or where?
Oh, I'm back in California, San Mateo.
San Mateo, not San Diego.
San Francisco, yes.
Okay, good. Okay. So, any questions from leading up? Stephen has a question, has a thought.
Oh, thank you, Venerable George. So this relates to something you said last week regarding mindfulness.
Right.
And you stated that the object needs to be realized. And I wondered if you would say a little bit more about that in contrast to, in Minds and Mental Factors, mindfulness is in the context of familiarity with the object. And so would you say something about the difference between realization and familiarity, if you don't mind?
Yeah. Do you have the actual definition from the tenets text that we used in front of you?
Yes, I do. Mindfulness, regarding the entity of mindfulness, the compendium of knowledge says, what is mindfulness? It is a non-forgetfulness of the mind with respect to a familiar object. It has the function of non-distraction.
Right. So I think in that context, the familiar object means it sort of refers to an object which you have realized. You've cognized this. For instance, in the breathing, you have to, if you're completely distracted and someone says, watch your breath, and you don't know what to do, You might think you try to watch it with your eye or something like that. When you actually, with your mental consciousness, observe the breathing, know that you're breathing in and out, that constitutes recognizing that object. And once you have realized it and have been familiar with that for some period of time, then you can focus your mindfulness on it. You can keep it in, let's say, that mindfulness can sort of hold on to it, keep its continuity there in your mind. I think that's the meaning of that.
So Venerable, then what I'm getting from your explanation is that it doesn't need to be a full inferential realization or even a direct realization. It can be.
Well, generally, when we observe things, conventional things, we do have valid cognition of them. We do realize them. When you look at the tree, unless you have some source of error, you do have a valid cognition of that. When you feel something with your skin, like right now, I feel this stitches in my or one stitch. I don't know how many stitches he put in. They did some biopsy the other day. I can feel that with my body consciousness. That is a valid cognizer. And something which is realized by a valid cognition is the definition of an existent phenomena. It's something that you've realized. So most of the things that you could say, observe, unless there is some source of error in the organ, like in the eye or in the body consciousness or something like that, those would all constitute, as far as I understand, those would all constitute having realized their object. So when the mental consciousness observes the breathing, the respiration, if it's actually doing that and you're not just imagining it, that would constitute realizing the respiration. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does, Venerable. I was thinking about our own meditation object today, which is the conventional clear light nature of the mind, that it offers no obstacle to the coming or going of thought. That, to me, that's a conceptual realization, though.
Right.
And even just looking at the breath and saying whether it's long or short or steady or unsteady, even that becomes conceptual. So,
well, yeah, the observation is a direct perception. And then the mental consciousness observing that says, oh, that was long or short. That was an inhalation. That was an exhalation. So they're both connected. The observation of the clear light, conventional clear light nature of the mind, in the same sense as the observation of the ultimate nature of the mind, which would be emptiness. The observation of the clear light nature of the mind is something that is cognized by the mental, or as I mentioned in the meditation several times, by the eyes of wisdom and gnosis. So generally we say, when people talk about the third eye, sometimes Losang Rampa's famous book. Did anyone read The Third Eye by Losang Rampa? Oh, Ron did. Okay, good. Richard, did you? Doesn't ring a bell. So supposedly, this little brow aperture, which in Tantra also is an important place, right? Just at the the junction of the two brows. There is an aperture there. There's the Brahma aperture at the top of your head. There's an aperture here. That is sometimes referred to as the third eye, but really the eyes of wisdom, which means prajna or sharab, we say, and the eye of yeshe in Sanskrit, jnana, that refers to the ability of those two kinds of wisdom to actually see, let's say, emptiness. Like there's a famous expression that I think we've talked about before, but will come up again in the future. The best seeing is no seeing. That comes in the dohas of the Mahasiddhas, the 84 Mahasiddhas and so forth. What does that mean? The best seeing doesn't mean the best seeing with your eyes, but the best seeing is to see with the eyes of wisdom and gnosis the ultimate nature of phenomena, that there is no findable nature in that meditative equipoise on emptiness, let's say. So in our meditation, we're just approaching that. If we were to do a Mahamudra retreat, we would spend time on, trying to actually have an experience of that in our mind. Right now, we may not have a proper realization of that at all, or a conceptual realization of that. We're just beginners in that. But ideally, that is what you would hold in mindfulness there. Once you've got a mental image of it, you would hold it with mindfulness. So you have a continuity of that without being distracted by other things. Okay.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Okay. Anyone else have something that's okay? So just a correction from the Lama Tsong Khapa Puja the other night. I mentioned, or let's say a comment on it. I mentioned at the time in the puja where it says Namo Gurubhya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya. The text that we had said Namo Sanghaya, and I mentioned that's incorrect. We've been working for several days with Paul and my friend Jeremy. It definitely is not Namo Sanghaya, but there's still a possibility it can be Namas Sanghaya or Nama Sanghaya with a N-A-M-A. In Tibetan, the Visarga, the symbol is written with an H with a dot underneath. It's sort of like Nama. That's how it's always written in the Tibetan texts that are more authentic, whereas Paul pointed out in one of the Sanskrit grammars of a great Indian pundit. What's his name, Paul? Deshpande, something like that?
Deshpande, Madhav Deshpande.
Did you study with him at all?
No. I studied with Gary Tubb, who was one of I'm forgetting. No. Deshpande, I think, still teaches at Wisconsin, maybe. I think he's still a professor there.
I think I'm not sure. I think Jose studied with him in India when he was in there. Anyway, another text, another grammar text, Sanskrit grammar text says that there is definitely instances of it being Nama. So anyway, it's not Namo Sanghaya with before words that begin with S, but it could be possibly Namas, but according to the Tibetans, it's usually Nama. Anyway, I just wanted to place that out there. Okay, so let's continue. We're going to start from Jimpa page 178. If you have the written text in Anne Klein's book 172, applying the example to the meaning. But I'm going to read the paragraph before that just to reiterate what we talked about last time. Even so, in Jupa's text, even with respect to true existence from the perspective of ordinary conventional cognition, generally, when there is an appearance of a thing as being something, then it being empty of such a thing simply does not occur. So who can explain what that means? Mikhail, can you explain what that means? Even with respect to true existence from the perspective of ordinary conventional cognition. Is that talking about the true existence in relationship to emptiness?
Oh, sorry, I'm lost now. I'm not sure.
Okay, do you see the place where we're at, though? At any
Yeah.
So Anne Klein makes it more clear. She says, with respect to that which is truly established in terms of a conventional awareness, if an object appears as something, it could not be empty of that. And also, if it is empty of something, it could not appear that way. In a note regarding that paragraph, she says, true establishment here, or as Jimpa said, true existence from the perspective of ordinary conventional cognition. He says true existence, she says true establishment. True establishment in terms of a conventional ordinary awareness does not refer to the object of negation as the term true establishment usually does. But here it means something that is true on the conventional level. So for instance, here it's talking about, say, seeing your face in a mirror and having the understanding that that is not really your face that you're looking at. You could say, in ordinary parlance, we even say that, oh yeah, I'm looking at my face. You're looking at a reflection of your face. Your face is here, right? So this is talking about things that are true conventionally as opposed to false, like seeing an illusion of a horse would not be, in this context, truly established conventionally. It's not, the word here, truly established, is just meaning whether it's true or false conventionally. Okay?
Is it saying that if an ordinary mind understands that something which appears in one way is not really in that way, then it must be an ordinary error?
Right. It's a falsity to the world.
Yeah.
You know,
okay.
You know, like seeing a mirage that looks like water. That would be not in this context, the words being used, truly established, but truly established just means it's not really true. It's false. It's not really water. Okay. So even with respect to true existence from the perspective of ordinary conventional cognition generally, when there is the appearance of a thing as being something, maybe horse, then it being empty of such a thing simply does not occur if it is actually something that's true. Similarly, when it is found to be empty of being such a thing, in other words, once you see that it is not really a horse, the magician's illusion, or the mirage is not really water, or the story that you got caught up in on your television or the movie theater is not really the Peloponnesian War or whatever. Then similarly, when it is found to be empty of being such a thing, when you see that it's not that, its appearance is such just does not occur when there is indeed the convergence of the two. In other words, for example, a mirror image, that it appears, the mirror image appears, but you know that it is empty of being what it appears, empty in the sense of it is not really that, it's not really a face. Such things are false, even from the perspective of ordinary conventional cognition. That's where we finished last time. So Anne had translated that, even with respect to that which is truly established in terms of a conventional ordinary awareness, in other words, that which is true for a conventional ordinary awareness, if an object appears as something, it could not be empty of that. If it is true conventionally. And also if it is empty of something, that means if you see that it is not actually the face or it's not actually the horse, it could not appear that way. Hence, if a combination of those two, that is appearing one way and existing another, occurs, it is only a falsity in terms of ordinary awareness. Okay, that's where we finished last time. Making sense? Karen? Making sense? Yeah, more or less. Yeah. Suvash, you there? Okay. David, you have a question?
Yeah, I do, and I apologize for this question. Maybe it's back on page 1. How is conventionality decided? What is the population that decides that something is conventional and something that's not conventional?
Right.
I don't know if that question makes any sense.
Yeah, right.
I go back to the convention, to the colorblind,
right.
conference
Right.
of colorblind people. What's conventional?
Right. So first of all, it has to be observed by a conventional valid cognition. And it has to be not contradicted by other conventional valid cognitions, nor contradicted by a valid cognition of the ultimate. I think those are the three defining characteristics of something to be conventional.
I'm sorry, what was the last one?
It's not contradicted by
Yeah.
It is not contradicted by a valid cognition of the ultimate. So that will come up. That's coming up, in the future, more detail about this. But we had mentioned it before, just in passing. We may have mentioned it also in our tenets class a couple of years ago. So what this means is that, let's say the colorblind person thinks that they have a valid cognition of the color, which is from the perspective of other people is not correct. Or as someone brought up, you could verify to the person that what they're perceiving as a certain color is not, that is contradicted by a valid cognition of the instrument which is measuring the wavelength of that light that they thought was a particular color. So you can have valid cognitions that contradict what you think, let's say the colorblind person thinks. So it doesn't depend just on the consensus of other people. If you're worried about that, you're going to say, maybe all those other people are wrong and the colorblind person is right. Does that make sense?
It does. And I guess it has to do with humans. Because of course flies, they see things differently than I do, right? They have a whole different
right. And Prata's experienced water in a different way than we do, and so forth. So that's another question that's getting, does a preta have, do they have a valid cognition of pus and blood? So that will come later. Again, that will come later. Okay. So this
Preta.
Yeah, pretas. So now we are at
I'm
this.
sorry, I didn't mean to. Yeah.
No problem. So now we're at this place where we're beginning today explaining the analogy by relating it to the actual referent. So the analogy is talking about the magicians from the Svatantrika's famous example, this analogy of the magician creating a horse or elephant or other appearance through, some object that has been blessed, like a stick or stone, and by some spell over the audience, whether it be autosuggestion or hypnosis or the use of mantra or whatever, by relying on a worldly deity. Anyway, the audience has been suitably set up so that they actually see the imagined horse and so forth. So that's what's talking about the actual example, and translates it as applying the example to the meaning. Okay, so Jimpa's translation is, just like those spectators whose eyes have been affected, right? That's the audience. Their eyes have been affected by the spell and so forth. When outer and inner phenomena, just like that, using that as an example, when outer and inner phenomena appear as truly existent, this is not talking about the audience now, this is just talking about us in general. When outer and inner phenomena means phenomena that are not associated with your mental continuum. Inner phenomena means the phenomena that are associated with your continuum. So that means the mental factors and so forth. When outer and inner phenomena appear as truly existent, when you think outer things are truly existent, when you think of your mental factors, your anger or your attachment or your imagination of beauty as truly existent, sentient beings grasp at these phenomena not as posited by virtue of the power of the mind, but as existing in their own right. So the example we said before, the audience or the spectators, when they see the horse, unlike the magician who sees the horse but knows it is simply posited by the power of his mind, the audience doesn't think that. They think there is actually something there, a horse existing in its own right. This is the innate grasping at true existence from the Svatantric point of view. This is the innate grasping at true existence that has persisted since beginningless time. Okay, making sense? Jennifer? Yeah, okay, good. Shanka, you okay? Yeah, making sense. Richard, thinking mudra, okay. Oh, Stephen, you have a question.
Yeah, Venerable George, I thought the Svatantrika maintained that there was no appearance of true existence in the sensory perceptions. It only appeared in the mental perceptions. So then why do we have both outer and inner phenomena here?
Because you have a mental image of outer phenomena. When you have a mental image of outer phenomena, you're still talking about outer phenomena. You say you have, for Svatantrika, what's the famous example? Pillar and pot, we always use as example of outer things. A pillar that supports your basement ceiling or something like that appears to be, from Prasangika point of view, it appears to be truly existent. Svatantrika says it doesn't appear to be truly existent to your eye consciousness, but when your mental consciousness is aware of the observation by your eye consciousness, the mental consciousness has, grasps at that, or there is the appearance to your mental consciousness that that appearance is of the pillar is truly existent. That is to say, that it's existing there from its own side without the need of being posited, sort of, remember the example, 50-50, without the need of being any kind of positing by the mental consciousness. Does that help? Okay. So, Rocio, you following? Okay. So then next paragraph. That's their explanation of the innate grasping at true existence. Prasangika says it's something more subtle than that. It's not simply understanding that phenomena. How does it put it here? These phenomena are not posited by virtue of the power of the mind. That's relatively gross. So then the next paragraph says, compared to the mind grasping at the object of negation as defined by Prasangika, Madhyamaka, compared to that, the example we were just giving was Svatantrika Madhyamaka, right? This presentation of the Svatantrika Madhyamaka is very coarse and therefore does not constitute the subtle innate grasping at true existence that the Prasangika says is actually there. Prasangika goes further. The Svatantrika view is that there is something existing there from the side of the object, but you need to have it you need for it to exist for you, you need to posit it on that inherently existent basis. You have to posit it from the mind. So there's a 50-50. Prasangika says, no, there's nothing out there that is needed. Everything comes from the mind. Okay? Compared to the mind grasping at the object of negation as defined by Prasangika Madhyamaka, this presentation of Svatantrika Madhyamaka is very coarse and therefore does not constitute the subtle innate grasping at true existence, meaning that the innate true existence that the Prasangika says is that is existence since beginning of time. Nevertheless, when true existence as conceived by such grasping has been negated through reasoning, so that means whether it's actually what Prasangika says is the beginningless innate, just if you can refute what Svatantrika says is the case, that something is not posited by the power of the mind. Where is it? This presentation of Svatantrika Madhyamaka is very coarse and therefore does not constitute. Nevertheless, when true existence as conceived by such grasping has been negated through reasoning, and we're going to be coming up to the reasoning right now, then just like the magician, one will no longer apprehend outer and inner phenomena as possessing a mode of existence not posited by cognitions. So that doesn't mean completely posited by cognitions. It means that at least from the Svatantrika, there have to be two things. There has to be from the side of the object and something positive from the mind. So this is negating that that possibility. One will no longer apprehend outer and inner phenomena in your mental consciousness as possessing a mode of existence not posited by the mind, by cognitions. Making sense? KT's here. Hi, KT. Okay. So the sentence continues. He has a semicolon there. One will come to understand them, outer and inner phenomena, as existing merely as established by the virtue of the power of cognitions, let me just read what Anne says here. Oops. She says, when the true existence apprehended by the conception of true existence is refuted through reasoning. So we're talking about Svatantrika, right? One, like the magician, does not conceive of external and internal phenomena as having a mode of subsistence that is not posited through the force of an internal awareness. Rather, one understands phenomena as mere existence. Jimpa puts it as, what did he say? I think he said merely. One will come to understand them as existing merely. So it's not like the merely when we talk about merely imputed and so forth in Prasangika. Here, as Anne has it, rather one understands phenomena as mere existence posited through the force of an awareness. How are you doing? You grokking this?
Yeah, the Tupten Jinpa's translation looks like the Prasangika assertion, existing merely. No.
Right. Almost. That's why I say that particular, when he uses merely there rather than mere phenomena, as Anne translates it in Tibetan, it says some. It's not talking about merely posited or merely imputed as Prasangika. It's not talking about that at all. It's just saying that, as Anne says, get back. One understands phenomena as mere existence. That is to say, they don't have a true existence. I think that's the point of mere existence here. They are mere existence. They're not truly there because they lack, they don't have, because although there is some mode of subsistence from their own side, unless they're posited by the mind, they don't come to be perceived as existent phenomena. One understands phenomena as mere existence. I think the mere existence there means they're not truly existent, posited through the force of an awareness. So the positing comes about through the awareness, but so that makes sense. But for Svatantrika, to posit it, there has to be something existing from the side of the object. Okay, making sense? Okay, Paul, what do you think? Your
Yeah, no.
wheels are, yeah, your wheels are turning. Okay, good. The mill is grinding the grist there. Okay. Okay, so Jimpa's next sentence said, one will come to understand them as existing merely as established by virtue of the power of cognitions. Here, I think, as we just said, merely is maybe not the right choice. And it is those things established by the virtue of the power of cognitions or the power of awareness and not invalidated by other valid cognitions. Remember, we were talking about this a little while ago when I think Stephen asked about, or someone asked about conventional existence. So, and it is those things established by virtue of the power of cognitions. So in other words, posited by the power of cognitions, by the power of mind, and not invalidated by other valid cognitions of other people. This is kind of David's example of the other, whether it's invalidated by other people that are accepted to possess conventional existence. It is not the case that whatever the mind posits is accepted to have conventional existence. whatever the mind posits, say, like the horns of a rabbit, or, something that doesn't exist. The mind can still posit that, but that can be, or when the mind can posit the existence of water in the mirage, but that's invalidated by other cognitions. It has to be something that is posited by the mind, but is also not invalidated by other consciousnesses. And says, moreover, those phenomena posited through the force of an awareness, not damaged by valid cognition, so that, or you could say that are not damaged by valid cognitions of others, are asserted as conventionally existent. However, everything posited through the force of awareness is not asserted as existing conventionally. That's relatively straightforward, right? Making sense? Okay. Yeah, all of this material, it's worthwhile going back again when you hear more, and then go back and say, oh, did I understand that right? Don, what do you think? Making sense? There you go. Oops. Oh, okay. You have to find a way. There you go.
Can't find the button.
Yeah. Usually if you press the space bar.
Yeah, I'm still grokking this, George.
Okay, that's quite reasonable. I'm glad. Okay. So where are we? So now the Chimba's translation continues. Suppose our cognition posits the arising of a sprout from its seed. Okay. That means you what does that mean? That means that you think that the sprout arises from the seed, and you're in your own mind, you're positing that as something that happens. Suppose our cognition posits the arising of a sprout from its seed. This does not contradict the sprouts arising from their seeds on their own part as well. What does that mean? Well, from Svatantrika point of view, if you posit that from the mind side, you posit that the sprout arises from the seed, it doesn't contradict the fact that the sprout is arising from the seed, from the side of the object itself, that there is some inherently existent arisal of the seed. So quite soon, when we get to the Prasangika, Nagarjuna's famous example of production, of negating inherently existent production or truly existent production, the example of a sprout arising from the seed is the very first thing that's investigated. So that's kind of, we're presaging, we're giving a preamble to what's coming later. So from the Prasangika point of view, there is nothing. You would not say that the sprout arises from their seeds on their own part. That would be not the case. But Svatantrika exists. It says that they arise from their own side, from the side of the seed and sprout, and it's also posited by the mind. Making sense? Okay. So similarly, things that are the basis for conjuring an illusion, the stick and stone, do appear on their part too. They also appear from their own side as a horse or elephant. Remember, this was kind of a vexing assertion that was made before, earlier in the text, a couple of pages before, that for Svatantrika, if the pebble or stick has been made to appear as a horse or elephant to the audience, to the spectators, you can't say that it doesn't have it. You have to say, in the end, you have to say, for Svatantrika point of view, that there is an inherently existent appearance as a horse or elephant there. Even though, in general, you couldn't say that the stick or stone appears as a horse or elephant. But since it occurs in the case of a magician's conjuring the horse or elephant, you have to say that in general, for Svatantrika, that there is something existing there inherently, the appearance of a horse or elephant existing from their own side. Similarly, things that are the basis for conjuring the illusion, the stick or stone, do appear on their own part also, too, as a horse or elephant. That's what that sentence is referring to. Okay? By this, as a result of that understanding, one should understand the way all phenomena exist on the conventional level. That they all have something existing from their own side, but they need to have the positing from the mind. This is for Svatantrika, Majjhimaka. Or as Anne translates that section, although the production of a sprout from a seed is posited through the force of an awareness, for them, it is not contradictory that the sprout is also produced from the seed from its own side. This is like the fact that there is an appearance of a horse or elephant even from the side of the basis of conjuring, that is the pebble or twig, though through that, all conventionally existent phenomena are to be understood. This is how Svatantrika says we should understand all conventionally existent phenomena. Okay. We're on the same page? KT, are you okay? Okay. Good. You have a nice, similar to Nadine's background. You and Nadine are just small in the foreground, and you have she has a very simple background. You have yours further back there, a little more elaborate. Okay. So the text continues, since even the ultimate nature, what does that mean? What is the ultimate nature? Is there an ultimate nature? Shanka? For Svatantrika, is there an ultimate nature?
Is there an ultimate nature?
Oh, okay.
Well, there is an ultimate nature. I just don't know I think there is an ultimate nature, but I just don't know what that is.
It's emptiness.
Yeah. Well, that's
the ultimate nature of all phenomena is their emptiness. Okay. Since even the ultimate nature, in other words, emptiness, is established by virtue of its appearance to the cognition that perceives it. So the cognition that perceives emptiness, whether it be conceptual at first and later direct perception, it is established by virtue of the appearance to the cognition that perceives it, that its emptiness is established to exist. It does not stand as a counterexample to the entailment of, quote, or brackets, whatever is established by virtue of the power of cognition's necessarily being conventional existence. Whoa. Before I continue, Minto Vyo, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I have a question. So I guess this is the way that I'm understanding the points made by the Satantra earlier. So basically they're saying that even though phenomena that we know, like the physical world, like the table, for example, is impermanent, it's changing on time, but the fact that the table doesn't disintegrate completely, so it means that there must be some sort of tableness over there that really exists. And my mind
yeah. That's the point. That's the what they call inherent existence. Also, what Prasankika would say, identify as an inherent existence, something existing over there from its own side. Okay, then?
Yeah, so but you know, that does it make sense? It kind of makes sense, right? Because there must be some sort of tableness that's holding the molecule together. Otherwise, they would just disappear. You know, it would just be like a puddle of carbon everywhere, isn't it?
Okay, okay. So your MIT mind is thinking that way. Okay, okay. Let's see if that works. Okay, let's continue. Since even the ultimate nature established by virtue of its appearance to a cognition that perceives it, it does not stand as a counterexample to the entailment of whatever is established by virtue of the power of cognitions necessarily being conventional existence. That is a difficult sentence, the way that Jimpa has translated it to, what do they call it? Unravel. What's another word where they say that? So where is that? Since ultimate nature, how does Anne translate this?
Even reality.
Reality.
Even reality. Okay. So even reality, Jimpa had said, since ultimate nature. So I'm not sure. I don't have the Tibetan right on my screen right now. It's something like chuni, which you could translate, or something like that, which you could translate either way. Here, Anne translates it as reality. Jimpa's translating as ultimate nature. Even reality, that means emptiness, is posited as existing through the force of the awareness to which it appears. Hence, it is not an exception. I think I wrote this to Doris earlier in the week. This might have been the spot with double negatives. They always throw her for a whammy. Also, they throw me all these double negatives. Is Doris still here? Oh, there she is. Yeah. Maybe there was another point. Hence, it is not an exception to be posited as conventionally existent. So that is to say, even emptiness is not an exception to being posited as conventionally existent. It is conventionally existent by the force of it appearing to a consciousness, even for Svatantrika. So we're still talking about Svatantrika here. Okay. So the text continues in Jimpa's translation. Therefore, the following is definitely not the sense in which the analogy of illusion is to be understood. So you have already in your mind, this is a not. This is not this way. What is that way? That is not. Just as an illusion appears as a horse or an elephant, but is empty of them, all things such as vases and so forth appear as vases and so on, but are devoid of vases and so on. What is that talking about? Before we get to that, Mikhail, what do you think?
Yeah, just about the sentence before. If we get rid of the double negation, can we say that it means that even reality, suchness, is also posited as conventionally existent?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. That's the point. I think Anne's was more straightforward. It didn't have, she said, even reality is posited as existing through the force of an awareness to which it appears. That means posited as existing, established as existing. Why? Through the force of the awareness to which it appears. Hence, it is not an exception to being posited as conventionally existent. It is not an exception. So it is, emptiness itself is posited as conventionally existent. So it doesn't go into more detail here because this has come up several times before. Even though emptiness is the ultimate truth, is the ultimate nature of phenomena, emptiness does not exist ultimately. It exists conventionally. Why does it not exist ultimately? Because nothing exists ultimately. to exist ultimately means to exist, to be able to withstand analysis that delves into the ultimate, searching within the basis of designation, whether you can find something. Even emptiness, if you search within its basis of designation, its parts, and you might ask, what are its parts that's coming up? You can't find emptiness anywhere. It's just itself merely imputed. It's conventionally existent, right? It seems a little bit contradictory. What do you think, Richard? For emptiness to be the ultimate truth, but to be conventionally existent, does that set well with you?
As a loyal Prasangika, no.
No, that's actually what Prasangika also says. Absolutely.
Oh,
Exactly.
it's conventionally existent, but it's not conventionally inherently existent. That doesn't sit with me.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Okay, good. Okay. So that's what Jimpus is there for. So Anne translates it at the very bottom of page 172, the last sentence of the last paragraph starts, therefore, the significance of applying the example, the magician's illusion, that's the example that's being used, to the meaning. And what's the meaning? Other phenomena, other than horses and elephants and so forth. The significance of applying that, because that's the name of this section, applying the example to the meaning. It is not at all that just as the magician's illusion appears to be a horse or elephant, but is empty of being such. That's true, right? Empty of being such doesn't mean emptiness. It just means it is not that. Even though it appears to be a horse or elephant, it is not that. So all phenomena such as pots appear to be pots and so forth. You can say pots, pillars, horses, cars, and so forth. All those things appear to be themselves. My iPad appears to be an iPad. The trees outside my window appear to be trees and so forth. It is not the case that they are empty of being pots, trees, iPads, and so forth. It is not the case that that there's nothing there at all, in other words, that there's no pot whatsoever. For if that were the case, Anne continues in her translation, if that were the case, being that phenomena, for example, being a pot, would not occur. There would be no pots. And the application of the example to the meaning would be that phenomena appear to be such and such, but are not the actual thing. Jimpus said, therefore, the following is definitely not the sense in which the analogy of the illusion is to be understood. Just as an illusion appears as a horse or an elephant, but is empty of them, all things such as a vase appear as a vase and so forth, but are devoid, or as Anne says, empty of being vases and so forth. For if that were so, this is just explaining a misunderstanding of the example. If that were so, there could be nothing that could be said to be itself. There could be no pot, which a pot. So this is connected with this famous thing about what we say, rangtong. What is rangtong, Paul?
It's own emptiness, which is contrasted with the Shendong theory of other emptiness.
Right. So in rangtong, we say that we don't say that the pot doesn't exist. We say that the pot is empty of the apparent true existence. Right? We say it is. We say that it is empty of self. In that sense, we don't mean that there is no pot whatsoever. That is empty of being pot. We mean that it is empty of being an inherently existent pot. Okay, so that will come up again. That kind of distinction coming up in Rang Tong. Usually that's what Prasangika is asserting, that phenomena are empty of themselves. But it doesn't mean in this sense that they're empty, that the pot is empty of being a pot. It's that the pot is empty of being an inherently existent pot. There is a pot there, conventionally existent. Do you see the distinction? Karen, you look a little bit, okay, good. Okay. Savansh, are you with us? Maybe not. Okay. Rocio? Making sense? Okay, okay. So continuing in Jimpa's text. So he has a note right there, note 326, that says, Tsongkhapa is pointing out that the referent of the analogy is not that though things appear as themselves, a vase appears as a vase, they do not exist as themselves. That's not the point. That would mean they appear as a vase, but they're not actually a vase. Prasangika would say or Tantrika also would say they are a vase. Prasangika would say they are a vase conventionally. Rather, it is that although they appear as if they possess true existence, for Svatantrika, Prasangika would qualify that even better, say inherent existence, although they appear as if they possess true existence for the Svatantrika, they are devoid of such existence. It's not like they are not there at all. So to take the vase being devoid of vase as a reference of the analogy misses the whole point of this special analogy. That's it. I think that's a good synopsis. Does that make sense? Okay, Diana is slightly nodding. Okay, go ahead. You're reading, okay. KT, making sense? Okay, wobbly, okay. Sean? Okay, thumbs up. Continuing now in Jimpa's translation, now at that point, when the non-conceptual wisdom of meditative equipoise, the non-conceptual gnosis, this exalted wisdom of meditative equipoise. Remember when I talked about the eyes of Sherab and Yeshe, or the eyes of Prajna or Jnana. Here it's talking about Jnana. So they're talking about the the wisdom eye that in meditative equipoise it's realizing emptiness. Now at the point when the non-conceptual gnosis of meditative equipoise has arisen, you're realizing emptiness. Within that perspective, to the perspective of that mind, that means facing that mind, all dualistic appearances are pacified. There are no dualistic appearances. So in this case, dualistic appearance doesn't simply mean, one of the other meanings that we often talk about dualistic appearance, like that there's a subject and an object. That's definitely gone. But not even talking about, this gnosis. That's not what's talking about the dualistic appearance here. All dualistic appearances are pacified. Generally, the phrase dualistic appearances, ninang, has several meanings. Generally, as Geshe Zopa liked to point out, here in this context, generally it means an appearance of true existence for the Svatantrika. For the Prasangika, they would say it's even finer, the appearance of an inherent existence. That would be a dualistic appearance. You can kind of translate the dualistic appearance here as being appearance of being truly existent. That within that perspective, all dualistic appearances are pacified. So to the meditative equipoise on emptiness, directly realizing emptiness, that wisdom consciousness, that gnosis, there is no appearance of no appearance of true existence from the Svatantrika point of view. This is analogous to those spectators who, because their eyes are unaffected by the spell, have neither the perception nor the apprehension of the illusion. They don't have the appearance of the illusion, he says perception, and they don't have the grasping at it as being actually there. Okay, making sense? Okay, yeah. It's not as bad as some of the other parts before, but still you have to think about it. So continuing, Jimpa says, given that there will be no presentation of the unique style of negation through reasoning by Svatantrika Madhyamaka in the subsequent sections, I will briefly explain here in a manner easy to comprehend, and you can take that with a grain of salt, easy to comprehend, right? How phenomena would come to be perceived as illusion-like according to that tradition. So what's that say? So this is Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, in general, we're going to talk later about the logic that Prasangika uses to refute inherent existence, true existence. The logic. Here, there's not going to be any further in Chandrakirti's Madhyamaka, because this is a long aside, right? All this thing about Svatantrika. There's even in Madhyamaka, there's no explanation of the logic that Svatantrika uses to establish that phenomena are empty of true existence. All we've been talking about what they consider to be true existence, the measure of it, and so forth. We haven't talked about their reasoning. So now he's going to talk about the reasoning, or as Anne translates that section. There is no indication later in Chandrakirti's text, she puts in parentheses or in brackets, there's no indication later in Chandrakirti's text of the Svatantrika's uncommon mode of refutation of true existence by reasoning. Uncommon means their exclusive reasoning. Therefore, let us express briefly and in words easy to understand how in this system all phenomena are caused to appear as like illusions. Okay, Paul, what do you think?
I'm wondering if we can go back just to the earlier statement about even reality being posited as conventionally existent in Anne's translation, or as Jimpa said, whatever he said. Just to follow Anne's, even reality is posited as existing through the force of the awareness to which it appears. Hence, it is not an exception to being posited as conventionally existent.
Right.
And so the implication being that even emptiness is conventionally existent.
Right.
So my question is, if at the moment one directly perceives emptiness, only emptiness appears.
Right.
Is that, my understanding was that you are not seeing conventional phenomena at that time, that you are only perceiving the emptiness.
Right. That was the phrase, all dualistic appearances have subsided. So there's no appearance of any conventionalities, any kind of inherent or true existence at that time.
Right. So my question is then, what is the awareness to which it is appearing as conventionally existent?
Okay. No, it's not that it is appearing as conventionally existence. There is an awareness which can posit it as conventionally existent. So it's not appearing as emptiness is not appearing as conventionally existent. But in that meditative equipoise, there's no conceptions at all. In that direct realization, all conceptual minds have subsided. So what happens is in the post-meditation, this came up earlier when we talked about the path of seeing. It's only in the post-med, say when you talk about the first, you just exited into post-meditation from having realized emptiness directly.
Right.
During that meditative equipoise, you're not thinking, oh, wow, this is emptiness. I got it. There's no conceptions going on, right? It's only when you arise from that by the force of that realization, you have essentially what it is a remembering consciousness. I realized emptiness. And it's that consciousness in post-meditation that is positing the conventional existence of emptiness. What does that mean, that emptiness conventionally exists? Remember, you have to get your mind around this a little bit. Not you, Paul. I mean, you understand, but I mean, myself and others. All phenomena either have to be ultimate truths or conventional truths. Emptiness is an ultimate truth, but the understanding of emptiness is a conventional truth. So all phenomena are either what's the word? What did we say before? Conventionalities. All phenomena are either conventionalities or ultimately established or truly existent. They're either conventionally existent or truly existent. So does emptiness truly exist? Paul? No. So if phenomena, what do we call this? A dichotomy? Is that the right term? It's got to be one or the other. If
Right.
it's not truly existent, it has to be conventionally existent. So this is one of those other things you have to get your mind around. What do you think, Ron? Does this making some sense? Yeah, okay, good. Stephen?
Thank you, Venerable George, and also Paul for asking that question. But we can say that we can have a conventional inferential realization of emptiness by means of a generic image. So we can approach emptiness conventionally, although not have a direct realization of it.
Right. So that's talking about apples and oranges. We're not talking about whether you're using a conventional mind to realize it in the case of the conceptual realization. Conventional mind in the sense of a mind that's not in single-pointed concentration on emptiness. We're talking about what the status of emptiness is. So phenomena either have to be truly existent or conventionally existent. There's no other choice. Phenomena cannot be truly existent. Even emptiness itself, if analyzed, you can't find what is emptiness anywhere within its parts. And you might, again, I mentioned before, you might think, well, what parts does emptiness have? It's just like one big blob there, right? No, emptiness has parts because emptiness also always has to be with respect to something. The emptiness of Shanka's meditation cabin, okay, is different than the emptiness of Shanka's coffee mug. They're different emptinesses. The emptiness of Shanka's meditation cabin or house has parts because his meditation cabin has a little kitchenette, I think, in it, doesn't it, Shanka? Has windows, has a floor, is up and down, sides and so forth. So the emptiness of Shanka's meditation hut looks more like a mansion when I see it, has parts. So it too, when you analyze it, you can't find emptiness anywhere there within its basis of designation. That's what's being given, that's what's being gotten at here. Minto, what do you think?
Well, I think that I mean I don't know why I think, because I never realized emptiness, but I remember that I think some other presentation what they say is that when your dualistic appearance disappear, and then there are six consciousness, right? So only six consciousness sort of kind of cease, and you have
I missed the six consciousnesses.
so in our mind there are like eight consciousness. So the six, the five.
No. We're not talking about eight consciousnesses. That's Chittamatra point of view.
Right.
So we're not talking about that here. Svatantrika has transcended that. You can have some Yogacara Svatantrikas talking about the alaya vijnana in addition, and the afflicted mind consciousness making eight, but that's generally not, that's not the general conversation here. We're talking kind of in general, we're talking about just the six consciousnesses. So what's your point? What's your concern or observation here?
Also, not my true observation, but usually what I say is that if your mind realizes emptiness, then that emptiness had to have some existence, and usually people, I think, equate that existence to like your seven consciousness, the alaya vijnana.
No, we don't have to use that at all. In general, Svatantrika, if you talk about Sautrantika Svatantrika, for you to have an apprehension of emptiness, as you say correctly, with realizing emptiness, you have a valid cognition of emptiness. Therefore, emptiness exists. How does it exist? There's only two choices. It can either exist as truly existent or ultimately existent on one hand, or conventionally existent. Being conventionally existent. Nothing is truly existent. Even emptiness is not truly existent, because when you analyze it, you can't find it anywhere. Therefore, emptiness itself, what is its status? It is conventionally existent, because you can say in general, all phenomena, understanding the word phenomena is meaning things that exist, not just imaginations like the sons of a barren woman or something. All phenomena are conventionally existent. That doesn't mean that they that emptiness isn't the ultimate truth. That doesn't mean that emptiness is not. I won't say more there. Making sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, excellent.
Does it mean how I realize nothingness? Like just realize nothing, like there's nothing to realize.
So what you're realizing when you have a realization of emptiness is not that you're realizing nothing. Your analysis that precedes it had been analyzing whether Shanka's meditation hut or your San Mateo lawn. You have a lawn in your place, or you live in an apartment?
I live in an apartment.
You don't have a lawn?
I do have like a small backyard, yeah.
Okay, so Mintovu's lawn, you analyzing it, and you realize that it is empty of inherent existence through logic, reasoning. Then when you hold that single-pointedly with a combination of shamatha and vipassana, right? Shine and lakton, tranquil abiding and penetrative insight, the function of the lactone, of the vipassana, no longer is analyzing. It's a wisdom consciousness that is realizing that your lawn is empty of inherent existence. What that realization is a mere negation. At that point, you're not thinking, oh, my lawn does not truly exist. You're not thinking that. You're not thinking anything. All you have is a direct realization of that non-affirming negation, that your lawn is not truly existent. It's only subsequently when you arise from that meditation that you have a recollection of what you just realized, and you think, oh, my lawn does not truly exist. Okay, this will come again and again, but good that we've gone over this several times with different examples. So it's not the meditative equipoise itself that is realizing that emptiness is a conventional existence. In a sense, what you have the remembering consciousness that in the post-meditation, generally in after the path of seeing, there's generally two parts: meditative equipoise and post-meditation. In the tenets, there's always this third. What's the third hypothetical section called, Stephen?
It's something that is neither the first nor the second that you mentioned, Venerable George.
Right.
And upon that, there's a lot of discussion.
Yeah, but that's sort of like just linguistic playing in a sense. So either you're in meditative equipoise or you're in post-meditation. So when you're in meditative equipoise, you're not thinking that you've realized emptiness. You're actually realizing it, but you don't think that. It's only in post-meditation that you think, oh, those phenomena are empty of inherent existence, that you think that. You've realized it already, but at that point, there was no thinking. How are we doing? Okay. Nadine, what do you think?
Well, thank you, Venerable George. So, can one say emptiness can be found under analysis, and that's why it exists conventionally, but it cannot withstand ultimate analysis, and that's why it does not exist truly.
Right. I wasn't sure the first phrase you said, it can be found under analysis. It can be found under conventional analysis.
Yes.
Right. But it can't be, cannot be found, or in other words, it cannot withstand ultimate analysis. To not be found means that it can't withstand ultimate analysis. Okay. Okay, so continuing. So he's already said, so he's going to give a presentation now of the Svatantrika presentation of their unique style, uncommon to them, their own uncommon mode of refutation he's going to give. So Jimpa's text translation continues, determining that all knowables are subsumed means included in the twofold classification of conditioned and unconditioned. What does that mean? Conditioned phenomena means products. Unconditioned means non-products, another way of saying, or in other words, all phenomena are included into either being impermanent or permanent. The analogy I've given many times in the previous courses of there are many ways to cut the pizza, right? You can cut it in just through the circle, or you can cut it in squares, or you can do all sorts of things. You can cut out horses within the pizza to give to your daughter who likes horses or something like that. So you can divide the pizza. One of the many ways you can divide it in half is into impermanent and permanent. So all phenomena have to be either impermanent or permanent. What's correct? Either or either? Doris, what do you think?
Either or either are correct.
Either or either or either. Do you agree, Shanka?
There's
Okay.
a song about it, you know.
Is there? I didn't know.
Yeah, either, either, neither, neither. Let's call the whole thing off. There you go.
Okay, there you go. Okay. So determining that all knowables, everything that exists, all phenomena are included in this dichotomy of either convention, of either impermanent or permanent, or you can say conditioned and unconditioned and so forth. Conditioned things, that means products, impermanent things, are further differentiated into material and not material. Can you give an example, Rozio? Can you give an example of a product or in other words, a conditioned phenomena, as Jimpa translates it, which is not form, which is not material?
A thought.
What was that?
The image I have of my son that is in my head only.
I guess, yeah. I'm thinking of something more simple. Richard?
Okay.
Richard, what do you think? Products, a product which is not form, not material.
I was thinking almost exactly the same thing. Just a thought, something in the mental continuum.
Yeah, that's a sort of small subset. Even though thoughts are not exactly consciousness, or the mental image is not a consciousness. Generally, we'd say that products are either material or consciousness, or non-associated compositional factors. All products, everything that's impermanent, we studied before in tenets and so forth. There's a whole subset of impermanent phenomena that are material, that are form, in other words, zuk or rupa. There are impermanent phenomena, on the other hand, that are consciousness. Consciousness is not form. Consciousness is not synonymous with your brain, for instance, as some Western scientists would have. From the Buddhist perspective, that's not the case. It has its own continuum. Consciousness cannot, the continuity of consciousness cannot become form, and the continuity of form, anything that has form, atoms, cannot become consciousness. You can't suddenly, in the laboratory, take some protons together and make consciousness. It has its own continuum, right? So conditioned things, products, are further differentiated into material and not material. Shanka, what were you thinking? What are you?
This is just about Rothio's when we were talking about the image of her son appearing to the. I mean, that's a permanent. That's not a product, right? Because that's a generic image, so that has to be
Right.
permanent, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Sorry, Rocio. Was it Rocio who said that? Yeah. Your mental image of your son is not impermanent. Mary Ellen, what do you think?
Would it be something like a conclusion?
Say again?
A conclusion be not form, because it's a product of contemplation, just like not a conclusion.
Well, give me an example of a conclusion that you're thinking of. That your shirt is your son's socks are dirty because you inspected them and they're full of dirt. Is that the kind of conclusion you mean?
I'm thinking like a conclusion that, through reasoning, I look out the window and I see that there are no cars parked on my side of the street. And so I conclude that it must be Wednesday because that's the day we have speakers come.
Okay, right.
That kind of a product.
So if you conclude or infer, another way you're using the word conclude, which generally we don't use that word. We say if you infer that phenomena are empty of inherent existence, that conclusion or inferential understanding, you have to differentiate between what you've concluded or what you've inferred. Let's say through inference, you've inferred or concluded that phenomena are empty of inherent existence. You're using vipassana at this point, let's say in prelude to having a direct realization. At that point, once you've inferred that or concluded that, and you hold your mind single-pointedly on the conclusion, on the taste of that, you have what appears to your mind, your mental consciousness, is a non-affirming negation, emptiness, which is, at that point, as we said before, at that point, you don't realize that that's emptiness, but you are realizing it. So yeah, there's more to unpack there, but let's leave that for the time being. Jennifer, what do you think?
I just had a question that had arisen, which is how would Svatantrikas explain the formless realm if they think that form is, convention is there and that, the perception can perceive form? How would beings not be able to perceive form, or why?
So the formless realm, so we talk about the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm, right? So generally what it means is, let's say in the desire realm, it's called the desire realm. There are forms here too, right? There's form in the desire realm. What it means is that sentient beings mainly are dominated by attachment or desire. When we talk about the desirable objects, the 5 desirable objects of sight, smell, taste, sound. Sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. Like when you offer in the puja, you offer goddesses holding these desirable objects, and they themselves epitomize these desirable objects, those goddesses and so forth. So the form realm is not dominated by the attachment to the desire realm objects of desire. So those beings, it's not as though we don't have form and they do have form. They're called form realm because they are separated from attachment. Well, I'm not using the right term here when I say they're called that, because I'm not sure why they're called form realm. They are separated from attachment to the desire realm. In the formless realm, they are separated from the afflictions of the form realm, and all they perceive are things which, the form realm beings perceive forms. They have bodies, they see forms, they perceive forms. They're more on the intellectual level, like the chess player, as opposed to in the form realm, by analogy, as opposed to the meat and potatoes and Budweiser television watching football football loving guy in the desire realm. I'm being gross, I always watch the Super Bowl if I can every year. It's about the only game I watch. In the formalist realm, they don't perceive those kinds of forms, as you know, it's called that because of their mental disposition, the elevation of the mind. So there's no contradiction when we're talking about conventional forms or something like that in the Svatantrika. In the formalist realm, it's just that those minds are separated from apprehension of ordinary forms of the form realm or desire realm. Does that help a little bit, Jennifer? Maybe.
But would Svatantrikas argue that there is form, like subtle form?
Yeah, well, that's yeah. There,
Okay.
what we say in all of those traditions in the Mahayana, Svatantrika or Prasangika, when we talk about the formless realm, we say that there is, although there is no gross form, there is still subtle form, and we talk about subtle discrimination and so forth, subtle perception, that could get down in the tantric sense of still having the subtlemost wind and mind complex. The subtlemost wind constitutes the subtlemost form. But that's getting off the, actually, this is sort of just tangential to what we're saying here. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. It was more just like I was trying to think of an example where some beings may have the karma to see something and other beings don't, and then how would Svatantrikas explain that if there's an objective
Right.
something out there?
That interesting section will be coming up. So don't worry. We're not going to skip over the pretas seeing pus and blood and the gods seeing nectar and the humans seeing water and so forth. David, what do you think?
Thank you, Venerable George. So I'm sorry, I might have missed what Shanka said. So a mental image of a relative is a permanent phenomenon?
Yeah, so generally from the from the Pramanavartaka, which is accepted by the the Sautrantikas and Chittamatras and Svatantrikas and so forth. In general, when we talk about the presentation of mind and so forth, mental images are called meaning generalities, or dunchi. Dun means meaning or object or goal. Chi means general, so generality. So when you are thinking about your mother's face, you are not actually, your mother's face is not actually presenting itself to your perception, right? Directly. You are knowing your mother's face by means of this meaning generality or mental image. That mental image is said to be a double negative, to confuse Doris even more, because Doris and I have trouble with all these double negatives or triple negatives. So the opposite, let's say the mental image of a cow. In Meditation of Emptiness, Jeffrey Hopkins goes through this. The mental image of a cow is said to be the opposite of a non-cow. So what is a non-cow? A non-cow is, let's say, the particular cow that you're thinking of, the cow that's munching the grass in your vacation home in India. You open the gate, and one cow came in, and you're thinking of that cow. The opposite of that cow is everything else in the world, in the universe, all objects of knowledge that are not that cow. That's non-cow. So that could be, your mug of coffee, the tree, other cows, elephants, anything that's not cow, not that cow, is non-cow. Then the opposite of that, what happens? So it's kind of like if you think of a map and you say not Illinois. So then on the map, everything, Illinois becomes dark, and everything else, Indiana, Russia, South Pole, all of those are highlighted. Then opposite of that goes back to Illinois. What is opposite from non-cow is cow. So it's by that means the Pramana literature says that that is how we have a mental image. So a mental image would turn out to be, through this process, to be a permanent phenomenon. It would not be impermanent. The mental image of a cow is not the cow, even though the cow is impermanent. So you'll have to over tea later today. You'll have to debate with Karen, who may remember the tenets. Where did Karen go? Is she still here? She went off. Oh, there she is. So you'll have to debate with David about this topic that we talked about in tenets and low rig and so forth. Okay. Sean, what do you think?
My question was on the same subject. So if you're calling it a permanent phenomenon, I mean, I would assume, since with clairvoyance you would be able to see past lives, then it would be truly permanent phenomenon. But is that, when you're saying that those thought or those mental images, meaning generalities, are permanent, are they permanent beyond this physical life, or are they?
No, permanent just means not changing moment by moment. Doesn't mean eternal. Remember, we went over many occasions the difference, although it sounds like the same thing. You know, like in the Vedas, it says sound is permanent, supposedly. But what it means is sound is eternal. The sound of the Vedas has existed since beginningless time. Is that more or less right, Paul? Something like that? When they talk. So there's sometimes confusion about permanent and eternal. Our consciousness is eternal, doesn't stop, goes on, is existed from the past, will continue in the future, but it is impermanent. Okay. Mental images, according to the Pramana system, are permanent phenomena. That means they don't change moment by moment. But there is some, and I haven't seen much explanation of it, but Jeffrey Hopkins alludes that to the fact that some Prasangikas say, or in the debating courtyard, I think Jeffrey said in Meditation on Emptiness, that someone said that the mental image of a cow is impermanent, and all of the other people in the debating courtyard minds exploded. You know, like they just said, what? So that's some esoteric subject. Generally, we're taking the mental image or meaning generality to be a permanent phenomena. So I can't remember.
So those meaning generalities are not eternal, is what you're saying?
They're not eternal, no.
But how would a
permanent doesn't mean eternal.
But how would a person be able to clairvoyantly see into a past life thought?
Well, even to see a past life, yeah, that's with clairvoyance. So like the Buddha's omniscient mind knows each and every phenomena simultaneously, all phenomena of the past, the present, and the future, both levels of truth, every phenomena simultaneously at one instant. So the Buddha knows what your previous life, 500 lives ago, as Prince so-and-so. I assume you must have been a prince at that time.
Yeah.
He knows what you were thinking, and he knows the mental images that were the vehicle of your thinking.
So how would that not mean that those mental images are eternal then?
Well, the fact that let's say, the Buddha perceived the trees that existed in some previous lifetimes, perceived the people that existed in those lifetimes. But those people, the Brahmin who gave him a loaf of bread or something like that, they were not eternal. Their mental consciousnesses were eternal, but that person was not eternal. That person died. They were no longer called Brahmin so-and-so any longer. That's of a different category. That kind of clairvoyance just knows all of the phenomena that has existed through the Buddha's supernatural powers. So just let me finish this section so that we can place this down. And then I have a question from Pun King, who has reminded me that I didn't answer her question for 2 weeks that she sent to me. So I have to answer it at the end of this class. So it's not I'll have to tell her it's not at the beginning. You have to watch the whole class to get to the end. So she's in Singapore, right? Pun King, one of our people. Anyway, the text continues. So conditioned things are further divided into material and non-material, like consciousness and so forth. Based on this, one then refutes the notion that matter is composed of particles. You can say matter and non-matter of products. So matter is composed of particles, but they are not partless particles. It refutes the notion that matter is composed of particles that are partless. So that was the understanding of, say, the Vaibhashikas, that when you get down to the end, the most subtle components of matter are particles which themselves are partless. Sautrantaka and the Chittamatrans and Chittamatra and so forth mercilessly dismantled that through logic. We talked about that many, many times. For instance, if there were a partless particle on Shanka's nose, I'm just keeping Shanka in view here. If there were a partless particle, it would have to have, it couldn't be a partless particle because it would have to be one part of the particle that was facing Shanka's nose and another part of the particle that was facing out and to the left and to the right and up and down and so forth. So through logic like that, not necessarily partless particles on Shanka's nose, but just refuting the existence of partless particles. Based on that, then one refutes the notion that matter is composed of particles that are partless in the sense of having no directional parts. Everything has some directional part, such as east and so on. And the notion that refutes also the notion that mental phenomena, the other kind of product, well, there are three kinds of products: matter, material, form, consciousness, and non-associated compositional factors. So, but the other main one, matter and consciousness. Also the notion that mental phenomena, consciousness, are composed of a series of individual points devoid of temporal parts. So the Vaibhashikas would say there's also, if you look at the mind, there are individual moments of consciousness. When you get down to it, like, you go to a duration of 1/10 of a second, 1/millionth of a second, 1/trillionth of a second. There's some point, Vaibhashika would say, that can't be divided any further. That moment of consciousness, they claim, there are some that have no parts. So that comes into, even modern Hinayana, Theravada tradition when they're talking about realizing consciousness and so forth. So, and the notion that mental phenomena are composed of a series of individual points devoid of temporal parts, such as the preceding and the subsequent moments. So all of these things, consciousness and material, all have parts. These refutations, one should understand, is explained elsewhere. So that means in the text that, that I think he even mentions the text by Vasubandhu. Where was it here? Tsong Khapa is referring the reader here to such classic expositions as Vasubandhu's critique of atomism, critique of partless particles, actually, in his text, the 30 verses, and Shantarakshita's ornament of the middle way. But those aren't the only places that's partless particles are refuted, but that's two classic examples. So that's what Lama Tsong Khapa means. These refutations one should understand as explained elsewhere. One establishes in this way the logical entailment that all conditioned things are composed of parts. So that's where we're going to end today. So next time we're going to start from that paragraph. Next, if the parts and the bearer of the parts are distinct entities. Who knows the page in Jimpa's hardbound that is?
179.
Thank you. 179. And I think in Klein, that is what?
173, I believe.
73. Okay, so we have that. I can repeat that next time so people can find. So we're going to stop there. Not as bad as some sections as the past, right? Ron, what do you think? You're laughing?
Yeah, my brain is full.
Yeah.
I'm getting the little whirling beach ball,
Right, exactly. Mine too. Okay, so Sister Pun King. Pun King is an old friend, many years in Singapore, very successful lady, and her sons are doctors. In fact, I think John Campbell hosted her son just a couple of months ago, brought him up to see Robert Thurman. It was her son. I think her son is a urologist, or I'm not sure which son it was, and John arranged for an interview with Robert Thurman. The Pun King's son is like, Robert Thurman. If I could meet Robert Thurman, that would be it's like meeting Michael Jackson. Just last night I watched a little bit. Did any of you see Thriller 40? The documentary on 40 years after the album Thriller by Michael Jackson. If you haven't seen it, very, very good. Very, very good. Anyway, so Pun King says, she's quoting from Jimpa's text earlier. By comprehending this point well, one will be able to avoid the confusion that arises from the thought, since objects are established by valid cognitions, and since valid cognitions are themselves cognitive states, their establishment of the objects would constitute the objects being posited through the power of the cognitions. In that case, true existence will be negated even in the system of the Buddhist essentialist. Do you guys remember that? This is maybe last week, 2 weeks ago. So this is a misconception that Lama Tsong Khapa was removing, overcoming. They've misunderstood. Generally, when we talk about phenomena being posited by valid cognition, the word posited in that case means they are established or realized by valid cognition. Like, say, for instance, our discussion earlier about emptiness. You have a direct realization of emptiness, you've realized it, and subsequent to that, in post-meditation, you remember that consciousness, and the fact that you have remembered emptiness, that you realized emptiness, that constitutes the positing of emptiness as being conventionally existent. But that's it's talking about emptiness, but all phenomena are posited by being realized by valid cognition. So here, that's one sense. And then in the Svatantrika sense, that phenomena are posited by the force of their appearing to a consciousness. Their posited has a different meaning. It just means that you are stating that the phenomena exists. So Pun King's question after that, she said, however, am I correct to say that, in the case of the two lower schools, the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika, true existence need not be verified by valid cognition. I'm not sure what she's written, true existence, EXISTENTS. I think she means true existence, EXISTENCE. But anyway, am I right to say that in the case of Vaibhashika and Sautrantika, true existence need not be verified by valid cognition because objects truly exist in their own right without having any mind positing them? So generally, I think in the lower schools, in Vaibhashika and Sautrantika, the assumption is that all phenomena are truly existent. That's kind of their axiom. But still, you don't have to, just the fact that they exist the way that they appear from their perspective. They say that they look to be true, and they are. They're forcing the issue. You don't need to verify that true existence. It reminds me a little bit of the Christian take on the soul. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, if any of you are biblical scholars, I think it was St. Augustine or someone like that who said, you don't have to prove the existence of the soul. You just know it's there. Does anyone know that quotation I'm referring to? When you in Christian theology,
sounds like all apologetics to me.
So there were so many of these philosophers who were trying to prove the existence of the soul, and I think it was St. Augustine, maybe it was another, who said, you don't need to prove it. It's almost like that's like the Vaibhashika position. You don't need to prove true existence. It's just there. What that means is, in talking about the soul, is just that it's so apparent that that the grasping to the appearance of the soul is so vivid. I'm going to go along with my grasping at that true existence of that soul, because it's just irrefutable that it appears. What's appearing? The subtlemost object of negation. Anyway, her question continues. Am I correct to say in the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika schools, true existence need not be verified by valid cognition because objects truly exist in their own right without having any mind positing them? Hence, there is this different from the Svatantrika. Okay, I'll leave that open-ended. So I'm not sure Pun King will be satisfied with that as an answer. She'll come back. She'll have some more subtlety on that. Okay, before we end, how are we doing? Karen, what did you think?
Off the subject, but I wasn't sure if at the beginning, how's William doing, Venerable George? Do you know? And how is Ida's husband? Any updates on either?
Okay, so we'll ask Rocio in a second about Ida's husband, but William, we've heard, mainly Doris has been, I've been in the emails from Jennifer, who was helping William. William had his operation. Doris, can you concisely explain what the latest that we've heard is?
I'm kind of mindful that we're on YouTube with personal information. If you think.
Any last question? we just stopped the recording for a short moment there. Any last questions? We'll have discussion group on Monday, but the following Monday, I have a doctor's appointment that was set up a long time ago, exactly at 2:00 in Asheville, so I can't be here. On Tuesday, I have an appointment, doctor's appointment, and then getting further out, it gets more complicated. I have another appointment that week to put the crown in my tooth, in my mouth. So I don't think after our final class, we won't have a discussion group unless you guys can figure out a way that we can do that. Who's the person? Mary Ellen, can you put up the dedication prayers? Okay, really try to think of the meaning. Due to these virtues, when the text English translation says merits, that's only a part of the virtues. The Tibetan just says gewadi, due to these virtues. So virtues are of two kinds, merits and collection of wisdom. Due to these virtues, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha. May I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all migrators without exception into that enlightened state. So that's one dedication. You can dedicate the merits again and again for different goals. Here, this prayer from the prayer of Maitreya is actually a prayer, but we can think of it as a dedication. May the supreme precious bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more, evermore. And then the prayer for the quick recognition of Lama Zopa's Rinpoche's reincarnation. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Peerless teacher and assembly of children of the conquerors, Shravakas, Pratika Buddhas, victorious Losang, Trakpa, Lama Tsongkhapa himself, who is spiritual father to his spiritual sons, Gyaltsab and Khedrup, together with your lineage, all the objects of refuge of the infinite realms, please now bestow the virtue and goodness to accomplish this prayer. In upholding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make this request. You are the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, while striving both for the welfare of the victorious one's teachings and for the welfare of mother living beings, to the exclusion of all worldly concerns. You suddenly departed to peace. At this, I am devastated. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the oceanic blessings of the three jewels and the great waves of the bodhicitta of the bodhisattvas, may the smile of a new reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for us fortunate disciples. And to all our spiritual friends, the Dalai Lamas, the Yangtze Rinpoches, the Serkon Rinpoches, and others, you who are my eyes for viewing all the infinite scriptures, you are the supreme gateway for fortunate ones traveling to liberation, engaging as you do with skillful means, moved by mercy. All illuminating spiritual friends, please live long and stable lives. And then just sort of revivify that, thinking in particular of William, Patrizio, and Geshe Dadul, who is still missing. There's now a reward that's been posted for $25,000 for any information to find him. All of them, all of our friends and families, all of the members of the FPNT community, and especially those who work at the center, Shantideva Center in particular, may all of their temporal and ultimate wishes be quickly fulfilled. And sealing our dedications within the emptiness of the three spheres, the merits and virtues are not inherently existent. The goals dedicated to do not inherently exist. The dedication trying to link those merits, those virtues to those ripened in those particular ways, that is just a process labeled, can't be found anywhere. And thank you for your steadfastness, your continuity. Look forward to seeing you, some of you on Monday, and hopefully all of you next Saturday. Take care.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thank you all. Thanks, Paul. Thanks. See you all.
Thank you, Venerable George. Thanks, Muriel.